Network in Port Elizabeth. This network is an initiative that aims to grow the youth's participation in finding solutions to the continent's growing plastic pollution problem. Waste-focused studies predict that by 2050, locally generated plastic pollution in Africa will outstrip plastic pollution on the continent entering its seas from other continents. Now, the growing plastic pollution is of great concern to the health of the ocean around Africa and its effect on its economy. Now, for more on this, we cross to our reporter Lerato Thipa, who's standing by with the Acting Minister of Environmental Affairs, Hanekom. Lerato, very good morning to you.
Yes, Blaine, as you said that by 2050, half of the oceans will have more fish, actually have more plastic more than fish. But by 2035, they want to have all the oceans in Africa plastic-free. And that's why this network is seen as a catalyst towards that. But joining me this morning, as you said, is the Acting Minister for Environmental Affairs with Hanekom. Tell us exactly why they chose to involve the youth in this network, and then also, will they reach their target of having zero plastics in our African oceans by 2035? Mr. Hanekom, in your speech, you talked about the fact that 53% of the waste comes from packaging. How do we use this packaging to recycle it and also to try decrease the waste in our oceans?
Well, thanks, Roger. Since you've thrown us straight into this question, obviously we have to generate less waste, and we want to make sure that less waste finds its way to landfills, and in particular, in the case of plastics, finding their way into the oceans and harming our marine life, and in quite a big way. And it's a big global problem. Clearly, there are a number of measures that we have to really contemplate and take quite seriously, and that is starting off with the polluter pays principle. So we've got to get sort of less waste generated in the first place, and then we've got to find creative ways of waste being turned into value, and so recycling is a very important part of it. I'm holding this hat, which was given to me a moment ago. It's made out of waste plastic. It looks pretty good. What do you think? If we create a market for products like this, it will create jobs and it will reduce waste. So I think the recycling industry is quite fundamental, developing it in creative ways, creating jobs in the process, but also cleaning up in the process and reducing the waste, plastic waste that finds its way to the oceans. But at the end of the day, your viewers who are watching this program should think about what they buy and buy more recycled goods, whether it's recycled tires, furniture made out of recycled tires, or whether it's plastics as floor mats or as hats. Make it the right thing to do. It may not be the prettiest thing in the world, but at the end of the day, it will contribute towards solving this massive problem that we have in our country and in the world.
In your presentation, you also spoke about the importance of separation at home, of waste at home, saying that even us as residents, we have a role to play in when we get home to separate our waste. Can you speak more about that as well?
Well, clearly our local municipalities have a critical role to play because it's very difficult if waste just finds its way to the landfill site and then an attempt is made there to separate it. It should be separated firstly at source. So, reduce the amount of waste, by the way. That's the first stage. Less plastic packaging, more environmentally friendly forms of packaging. But let's assume you will have waste products in your home. We produce a huge amount of solid waste in South Africa. 180 million tons, not 108 tons, 180 million tons of solid waste produced every year. So, and that finds its way to the landfill sites and ultimately into rivers and oceans. Big problem. So yes, separating in your home. But that requires firstly a greater awareness amongst the public, because you can't necessarily force people to do so, not easily. And secondly, the cooperation of the local municipalities. It must become easier for you, Lerato, at your home to say, this is where the plastics go, this is where the glass goes, this is where metals go, this is where e-waste goes. And it must be actually something that you have to do, partly from your own consciousness, but we also have to think about municipal bylaws making it compulsory, but municipalities have to make it easier. And then, of course, there are huge numbers of jobs that could be generated. It's the people who collect the waste, and already a large number of people are involved in that, but it could be far more. And then, of course, the people that change the waste into value, like this beautiful hat that I'm wearing today.
Last, Mr. Com, why was it important for you to involve the youth in cleaning our oceans, and also why was it important for South Africa to partner with Norway in making sure that we clean our oceans?
Well, in involving the youth, there are some obvious reasons. this planet of ours, which is our only planet, our beaches, which are our precious beaches, our marine life, it belongs to all South Africans, but ultimately, in a few years from now, it'll be the youth of today that are the adults or the older people of tomorrow, and they will look back upon themselves and say, did we do the right things? Can we say with pride that when we were young, we started this campaign, we started this awareness, we started doing real things to reduce waste, and look at the good results. We've achieved, hopefully by 2035, zero plastic waste to our oceans, or a very different scenario. And the youth will have themselves to blame, and us. We carry a lot of the blame, but what we want is the youth to get a real sense of the future is in their hands. It's up to them to create a different story, a story that is a story that will be a beautiful story where South Africa could take the lead, starting in this very city, Port Elizabeth, where Port Elizabeth could be and should aspire to be the cleanest city in the country. And we should have the cleanest beaches in the world. And we can, but it requires consciousness, and it requires effort and collaboration along all the spheres of government and good policy models that will find ways of creating, changing the notion of a waste product and making that waste product into a product of value. And so the waste product doesn't end up in landfill sites, but creates something that is of value, creates jobs, and doesn't find its way into the rivers and the oceans.
There was the Acting Minister for Environmental Affairs, Mr. Hanekom, really putting the responsibility on the youth, saying that they have the responsibility now to paint a different picture, to paint a clearer and a more clean environment. And it starts now in your home, cleaning up where you can, making sure that you take a plastic, put it into the bin, and like you said, using hats like these to make it all recyclable. It's back to you in studio.
Lerato, that's a cool hat, isn't it? And hats off to the Minister for actually trying it on. Lerato Thipa in Port Elizabeth Live with the Acting Minister of Environmental Affairs, Hanekom.
To our story that's leading today, Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba claims the widely circulated sexually explicit video of him is at the center of blackmail and extortion terms.